Hey everyone, Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. With us today on the Mayor's Table are representatives from local agencies providing resources to those who are victims of domestic violence as well as perpetrators. Lots of great information here. Stay tuned. Everyone, welcome to the Mayor's Table on Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett. It is October 2024. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I've got some very special guests who are here today to share information regarding things happening here in the city of Farmington in regards to domestic violence, which is a very heavy topic for our show. And I say I was excited to get into it, but I think it's a necessary conversation to have, and I just appreciate you all being here today. Starting to my right, we have Sarah Holliday, who is with the Farmington Police Department as one of our victim advocates.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Devin Long, who is our grant and fundraiser for New Beginnings.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here as well. And Saberta Bitsui, who is with our Family Crisis Center, and she is the Development and Training Director. Is that right? Manager. Directors, managers.
Well, yeah, thank you for having us here.
Well, this is a very interesting topic, and I appreciate kind of the advocacy. Saberta, you were one of those who was reaching out saying, hey, we should be talking about some of these things. And it fits in, as a community partnership. There's a lot of agencies who are out there right now providing resources and helping individuals who are victims of domestic violence, also the children who may be involved in those situations, and also the perpetrators of those unfortunate circumstances as well. So it's a very deep topic, and I just appreciate again you all being here. So let's kind of start here, Saberta, with you. I want to talk about the history of the agencies and kind of what your roles are, but tell us a little bit about what goes on at Family Crisis Center.
Okay, so Family Crisis Center has been in the community since 1978. So we started out by a lady by the name of Marge Atkinson. She had a restaurant in the 1970s, and what she did is she owned a restaurant, and she would see women that were being abused coming into her restaurant. So to help them, she would take the women and children into her own personal home.
Wow.
So then she eventually collaborated with a couple of other ladies in town, and they eventually approached the city of Farmington for a grant, and so they were able to move into a church, and then they were able to move into a 4-bedroom apartment. And so it has now since evolved into our agency, where we offer non-residential counseling, and then we also have one of the largest shelters in the community. We initially had a 14-bedroom shelter earlier last year, and we were able to purchase a new building and get it renovated, so we were able to add 5 more bedrooms. So now we do offer a 19-room shelter for our victims and survivors of domestic violence.
That's incredible. And I've just seen recently that particular property has just had some major landscaping and renovation to it. It looks very nice. And for those who participated in the 9/11 Day of Service, we appreciate your volunteering, and that was one of the projects that got taken care of. So
yeah, we had about 15 different agencies come forward and provide all the labor and the materials for our landscaping projects, so we were really excited to get that completed. So yeah, we're really happy to see the community come forward.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Devin, New Beginnings, also used to be United Methodist
Center,
yes.
Yeah. So we originally started in 1994, and we're formerly known, I still known as Navajo United Methodist Center. We were under an umbrella through the Methodist Center with our original history of our campus, and we actually just got the title and deed this last year, so we're more commonly known now as New Beginnings. But we've been on operation since 1994. Our campus originally consisted of 3 residential housing units where men, women, and children stay with us for up to a year, rent and utility cost free.
Wow.
In the last few years, we've expanded, and right now we are sitting at 6, soon to be 7 residential housing units. And we have the state of New Mexico's only trauma-focused child care center, and we have an on-site counseling center in our administrative building.
Very interesting. Saberta, I don't think I mentioned, you're on Apache, correct?
We are at 208 East Apache Street.
Okay, and the New Beginnings is?
1200 West Apache.
Okay, so just down the street from one another.
Yes.
Right. So we definitely work with each other because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes our clients, once they complete their 90 days at our shelter, that's the average time our clients stay at the shelter, then we definitely can refer people to New Beginnings. So they're definitely one of our transitional services that we use.
So kind of a short-term component, and then there's the long-term option.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah, very interesting.
absolutely. And one of the things we really appreciate about Family Crisis because they have staff 24/7 and they are able to do an intake for a family quickly, and whereas with us having families with us for so much longer, our wait times are much more extensive, but we're able to work very closely with Family Crisis Center. They, as soon as someone is brought into their agency, they reach out to us, have them fill out an application. So we've worked very closely over the years together.
Well, that's great. And another partner in that, of course, is our Farmington Police Department. Sarah,
Yes, sir.
how long have you been a victim advocate here?
I've been an advocate there for 13 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I've been with the city now for 20. But as advocates for the Farmington Police Department, normally we get the people that we serve as direct contact from officers who go out for calls of service.
Okay.
And then we reach out to them, and that's how we get our workload, right, is through those calls for service. And then, of course, we do utilize both of these agencies for those victims specifically of domestic violence to help them and to continue to provide services for these victims that we come in contact with.
I think it's interesting. I learned about the advocate program obviously years ago, but many people may not know that we have a victim advocate program. And so
True.
you're dealing with not just the DV part of it, but that's what we're here to talk about today, but a lot more.
Yes, sir.
When we talk about calls of service and when we talk about numbers who are impacted here, I want to make sure I preface this. We're not just talking about numbers here in Farmington, because your agencies serve broader areas than just the city proper. So it's important that people keep that in context. But I'm interested. Like we talked beforehand about the numbers that you have currently in the shelter, the number that you've had in the last month. How many are all of your homes currently filled? Kind of give us a rundown of that, Devin.
Yeah, so one of the things that we track in our agency is bed nights. How many survivors are able to sleep safely from a violent situation? And halfway through the year, the beginning of July, we had provided 4,400 bed nights for the year.
4,400 bed nights.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's very concerning, like you're talking about statistics. 100% of the survivors and children that come into our program have witnessed domestic violence. And I know that's what we're here for, but I also want to kind of bring light that 40% of the children that are also in our program are also sexual assault survivors. And so there's a lot of different type of violence, like we were saying, earlier with what Sarah is seeing and dealing with. And it's just the level of need is just so high. And I'm sure Saberta probably sees the same thing, but we do have to expand on services. We have about an average of 15 crisis calls a month for families, and most of them are very large, mothers with 5 or more children. And unfortunately, there's just not enough programs in our state that can house a family of that size. And so even though it sounds like a lot, that 4,400 bed nights that we provided, if we were able to take in every family in need, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we almost doubled those numbers.
Oh, very interesting. So what about?
We continue the number of clients that we take at our shelter fluctuate. So currently we have about 14 children and about 15 adults. But earlier, last month, we had close to 60 clients in our shelter. So we, again, like Devin said, we take a lot of families that have a lot of children. And we heard yesterday that we might be taking a woman in that has 11 children. So we don't know if she's coming, but if she is, we'll definitely make room for her. So when something like that happens, then the number of clients really go up in our shelter. So a lot of it just depends on who's coming, who's going. A lot of the clients can stay at our shelter for 90 days, but it's not set in stone. Like if they're ready to transition into additional housing, we will give them another 30 days, 60 days to make that happen. And then a lot of our clients, we don't tell them they need to stay there a certain number of nights. It's really up to them. Some of them will stay a night and then leave. Some of them will stay a little bit longer. So the client's already coming from an area where someone has power and control over their lives. So when they come to see us, we just want to provide a safe haven. So we don't want to add additional guidelines saying that you have to stay here a number of days, you have to do counseling. It's really up to them. We just tell the client, you know, you're in a safe place. Once you feel like you're safe, how can we help you at this point in time? What do you need help with? Do you need help with transitional housing? Do you need help to get a job? Do you need to go to a doctor? Do you need to get your kids back in school? Because sometimes our clients will come in the middle of the night with nothing, so we have to get them places to get their documents replaced. They have no social security card, they have no driver's license, they have no school records for their children. So again, we just have to help them with the basics and see what they need from us, and then we go from there.
I was just thinking about kind of the impact that these services have on somebody's life who's in this situation, and I think it's important just to reflect on that for our community to know that these resources are here, they're available. We want to encourage people, if you're in this situation in your home, that you seek out help, and that's exactly what these services do.
Yes, sir.
In regards to kind of statistics and calls for service, in
Yes,
regards
sir.
to domestic violence, can you share anything on that, Sarah?
I can. As of 2024, up until September, we have had 482 calls for domestic violence for our officers, and that's a high number.
Yes.
And we've seen an increase this year. It feels like we can feel that, you know, because we're a lot busier. And that number is close to another year in which, I believe it was 2017, we had 765 calls for service. And when you think about those calls, it's not the victims themselves calling, it's a neighbor, it's a witness calling, it could be a child calling, and not necessarily the victim themselves.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is the opportunity that we have to come into their lives and show them that there are resources out there. They don't have to live in this situation. So I see it as a great opportunity to help them at
Sure.
that moment.
We
Well, I
like to
wanna-
let our victims know that all the services we offer are free when they come in for counseling or shelter services. So what they do is we encourage them to either come in as a crisis walk-in at our office. We're open Monday through Thursday from 8 to 6, or they can call our crisis hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what we do is they do an assessment with them over the phone to see if they qualify for our services, and we just let them know if they do qualify, all the services are free to them.
That's
And then
good
on
to
the
know.
other hand, we also offer services to the perpetrators, and a lot of it through our counseling program. Our program is called HEAL, which stands for Help and Explore Accountable Lifestyles. And most of our clients come through us through the court system. So they opt to do counseling. They come to a family crisis center for a 52-week counseling program. So it is a self-paced program. So some of our clients finish up in 40 weeks, and some of them may be there in 80 weeks. And then to hold our perpetrators accountable, they do have to pay $45 per counseling session that they come in for.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And on that, with resources for victims within the community, something that New Beginnings just brought on through a new grant was we realize that there are a lot of victims and survivors in our community that don't necessarily need housing. They don't need to go somewhere like Family Crisis or stay in our residential unit. So we actually brought on a community advocate. So even if they may not have been in a recent violent experience, but they need help, maybe they want to take them to court, or they want to get a restraining order, they need to file divorce papers, they need help advocating for their child that's experiencing emotional and behavioral problems through the schools. There's a lot of different needs for those families, and we just brought on a community advocate, and we're about to bring in a family specialist that will be helping support those in the community.
That's great. You know, this is October's Awareness Month for domestic violence, and part of that is educating the community on what is domestic violence. I know we've just talked quite a bit about kind of the resources and things that are available to those. But when we look at obviously a high prevalence of domestic violence that we're feeling, And I think there's a lot of things that kind of drive those numbers up from time to time. A lot of it are economic-based situations. We know here locally we've been facing some very difficult struggles when it comes to kind of high-quality, high-paying jobs that traditionally has kind of helped keep families together, and it gets very stressful when those situations occur. So I imagine that plays quite a bit into it. But maybe you could discuss a little bit about power and control. Was one of the things that we had wanted to make sure we kind of, for people to understand and different signs that they can see for somebody who might be in a bad situations.
So mainly it's a pattern of abusive behavior that one intimate partner has over somebody using power and control. And domestic violence comes in lots of different forms. A lot of people will see it as physical abuse, where they see a woman getting, a bruised eye, but it actually could be financial abuse, cultural abuse, spiritual abuse, economic abuse, psychological abuse. They can use the children. They can threaten the pets. A lot of them will say, "I'm going to kill your dog if you attempt to leave me." So we also wanted to let our community know that we also have a kennel at our shelter where we do take cats and dogs, and as long as the client is there, they can bring their animal with them. So that might be one reason that someone may not leave their home, because of their animal, because sometimes their animal is their child.
Sure.
So, that's really important for them to be safe as well.
Yeah, and it's not something that just, we were talking about some examples before we came on the show, and you gave me one with an individual who was in a relationship for 20 years.
Correct.
Talking long-term abuse, and someone finally having the courage to say enough is enough and stepping out of it. But for various reasons, people, they stay in there, and you just kind of pointed those out.
They say it takes a woman and most of the victims are women, so I'll identify them as a woman. They said it takes about 7 times before they leave their perpetrator. And there's a lot of reasons people will say, why don't they just leave? So there's a lot of reasons that they're not going to leave their perpetrator. First is they're afraid, embarrassment and shame. They might see this abuse as normal because that's what they've known their entire life. So they were experiencing generational violence. They might be economically dependent on that person. They might have a disability where they depend on that person to help them in that area. So there's just a lot of reason that person won't just up and leave. And a lot of it, they say when a woman decides to leave, that's when her percentage of getting killed goes way up. Yeah. So she's going to get hurt, so she may not want to leave at that point in time.
And then stalking comes into play too.
Yes.
Correct.
When victims leave their offenders, we're seeing stalking come in. They're starting to experience that too, makes them become more fearful. How should I go back? Because now I'm not going to have to deal with these stalking situations, right? And so that's another.
How frequently are we seeing those situations occur?
The stalking?
Yeah.
I honestly could tell you that this year feels like we've had more restraining orders than ever before. And Silberta can attest to that. We had hearings just on Tuesday, and we weren't out of there until 3 o'clock. But they're putting these restraining orders on their offenders, but the offenders keep violating these orders. This paperwork is not stopping them.
Right.
And until law enforcement can come in and charge them appropriately. And we're seeing a lot of aggravated stalking charges happen as well, because it gets to that point where they're just not stopping.
Well, and I think that children do play a huge part in it. I mean, we've had situations where we've seen abusers, they have their spouse going to counseling, that they've convinced them that they are crazy through gaslighting and emotional manipulation, and to their family and friends, completely isolating them and making them go to counseling, showing everyone that they are the problem. And even their children, unfortunately, end up believing that. And so once the child has been separated from that person, they're very low likely to leave an abusive situation. And if they do end up finally leaving that situation, then comes into custody. And with those restraining orders, where does that line lay, and how can we protect these families, because they're fearful for their children? Is their abuser going to retaliate and go after their children, hurt them? It's just a very messy situation.
I just get the sense, just listening to these stories, just picturing those situations and just all the ways that you described it in regards to whether it's sexually related, economically related, and the kid component of it. And geez, these are some very frightening situations that people are in, and it's sad. It's very sad. But I appreciate the fact that your agencies and individuals like yourself are willing to step up and say, look, we're here to serve, and we're going to make this better the best way we can possibly do it. But I mean, if we were to talk to this community and ask them something, I just be honest with me. How many of these things are driven frequently by abuse of alcohol, abuse of drugs, abuse of those types of substances? I imagine it's a very high number.
With the cases that I've dealt with, I've seen more than half have alcohol or drugs involved in that situation.
Well, a lot of them do have a co-occurring dual diagnosis. You know, substance abuse falls very much in line with domestic violence, but I think it also then goes back to the issue of generational trauma. And I mean, with the survivors, the adults, 99% of them are also childhood survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. So unfortunately, they're growing up and becoming adults, and they are the children that our community missed. They are reverting back to those behaviors that they saw from their parents or their caretakers. Maybe that's an aunt, uncle, grandparents. And that's why it's so important for programs like ours, for us to really invest in the adults, not just the children, because we have to realize that we are asking them to do things that they've never been asked to do. I mean, we have all these incredible resources in the community and to empower them, but if they don't have the confidence and to be able to access those resources, they're not going to, and it's going to continue with their children and their children's children. And so, I mean, like even in our homes, our building is very, very old, and it's from about the early 1900s, and some of those buildings have not seen any TLC since the 60s. And one day, all of us at the office had just had a really hard day hearing hard stories, and we were like, gosh, I'm just ready to go home, grab a blanket, cup of tea, and just let this day go away. And we realized that our homes have a great therapy, and we started renovating all the houses on our campus, one a year, for these families to be able to live in a home that looks nice, like the ones that all of us here have. To know that no mean words have ever been spoken in it, nothing has been thrown, or there's no cracked floors or ceilings. And it's been actually very interesting, the change that we've seen in the women in men that have lived in these homes and what they're wanting for themselves when they leave our program. We have to, as a community, learn to empower them to break that generational trauma and cycle, so that way their children will graduate high school, they're going to go to our colleges, they're going to open businesses, and we can see our community grow and flourish.
Sure.
We also wanted to know that domestic violence is a learned behavior, so we want to let people know that the perpetrators know what they're doing, so they can't blame it on alcohol or drugs or stress or, I had a bad day, that's why I came back and beat up my wife. It's a learned behavior, and so what we try to teach our community is that it's a behavior that we can unlearn, that there are ways to have a healthy relationship, and you can be able to deal with all those things in a good way, with good communication and respect. So that's one of the things I'm excited to hear from our HEAL clients this afternoon, to see what they have to say from the program, because a lot of our clients, when they first start, they're mad that they're there. They blame everybody else, she did this, that's why I did this to her, and or they blame their alcohol. It's all related, but the alcohol's not causing the violent behavior, and they're learning that from somebody, like generational violence. Like when I do presentations at the DWI Treatment Center, some of the clients will tell me after I do my DV presentation, that's all I have known in my life. That's not what I saw my parents do. And I don't know how any other way to deal with the stress that I'm experiencing in my life.
And that's absolutely true. In our child care center and with our residential kiddos, we have a screening. It's called an ACE questionnaire, which is an Adverse Childhood Experience questionnaire. And it's 10 questions, 0 to 10, and basically it gauges a child's level of trauma that they've had. And anything up to 4 is considered normal. They might have seen their brother break their arm, or they were in a car accident. So there's certain traumatic experiences. However, when they start getting above 4, that's when their chances of becoming a perpetrator, becoming an addict, or engaging in promiscuous behavior, becoming suicidal, all of those chances begin to increase significantly. And that's when we start to see that a lot of these kiddos that have gone through these hard experiences, they revert to that behavior. I consider it kind of a lion and a lamb situation.
And shame on the adults for putting their children in these situations. I wonder if I took that test, what I would score. Because I remember as a child seeing a lot of those things, unfortunately, in my neighborhood, or things that were happening to friends of mine. And it's just, as adults, we have to just take our responsibility to those kids. We have to take it more seriously.
And we do. Absolutely, I agree with that. However, though, I do think that it goes back to, again, that shame that a lot of these victims do end up feeling, because they know that, wow, my child has been through these experiences. And
Sure.
they, again, are more inclined to, let's keep it private, let's keep it under the rug. And there's a misconception that if their child is not being physically harmed, that they've been protected. They live in that fight or flight mode, and unfortunately the children, as long as they can keep them on the iPad and quiet in the bedroom so they're not agitating anyone, mom can, or dad, whoever it could be, is taking the brunt of it, and then everything can be okay. And unfortunately it's not. We need to help everybody, no matter what the experience they're going through.
Absolutely. Well, and so on that point, if somebody was interested in understanding the signs to look for, whether it's you're at work and there's coworkers that you're, looking for those signs, what would those signs kind of be like to identify somebody who might be going through this?
Some of the signs that I think you would be able to see, and for me, I just see it through after visiting with a victim who's just been victimized, and they come in, they hide their physical bruises or scratches or whatever with clothing. And they even do it knowing that they're going to come into a police department, and we know what happened to them.
Right.
They will do that. They will hide everything, wear the sunglasses. So if you see somebody who normally doesn't wear sunglasses in an office building, maybe is doing that, that could be a sign. I do know a person who has been victimized quite a bit will turn to drug or alcohol to deal with that, because they don't have any other way to, or know how to. I've seen them become fearful of everyone around them. It's hard for them to trust other people around them. Even us as law enforcement employees, we're there to help them. They're just not sure. I never forget this one lady who had come in and just terribly, terribly physically abused, and she asked me permission to throw away her trash. And I was taken back by that. And of course, I let her, but then it made me realize that's what she had to do. It's just terrible. So those kind of signs.
Yeah.
Asking permission, not feeling that they can make their own decisions. I don't know if y'all have.
I think also I've noticed a very common behavior is that they try to minimize themselves. They kind of shrink back. They don't want to draw any attention to themselves. I've had, receiving excessive calls from a significant other at a workplace. They are very antsy that they have to be out of work by a certain time, or they have to follow a very strict schedule to the point it's almost obsessive. I think that that's one of the signs that could easily be dismissed as other things, but it should still definitely raise.
I had a coworker like that who married this man, and she lived here in town, and they lived in Shiprock, and he would tell her it's going to take you 35 minutes to get home. So she had to be out of there by that time, and then if she wasn't back in that 35 minutes, he would basically start accusing her, like, are you seeing somebody? Where did you go? You should have been home by now. And he would be calling her at work all the time, like, where are you at? Who are you having lunch with? And she was a very nice woman, but after a while she was like a frazzled woman, and she, like, every time she got a phone call, she was just like, shaking, and she really just changed her behavior. And she eventually divorced this man, but it was like really sad to see that he was like basically controlling her. And so you can definitely see the changes in her behavior. And then I also wanted to mention what we mentioned on our presentations is we let our community know that children are the most impacted by domestic violence. And we talk about the different age groups. So, for example, and then a lot of our clients will say, well, my child didn't hear anything, they were in the other room. but the children know what's going on. You know, they don't have to see it and hear it, but they know something is happening in the family. The children can also become involved. They might be in the middle of the mom and dad, being the one to separate the couple. They might have to, one parent might say, well, what did your mom do today? Who did she talk to? So they become a spy. They might have to pick up the parent to defend. You know, your mom is this way. You know, I'm right. So the child gets put right in the middle of a DV situation. And so we talk about what happens to a newborn, to a 2-year-old. You know, they're going to be traumatized, they're going to be very frightful, and they're going to be very colicky, and they're going to be getting sick often. And the child's going to be crying and crying. You're like, what is wrong with this child? Then we talk about from 3 to 11, you know, they're going to be having experiences with behavior problems. You know, the teacher might call and say, you know, your child is like having a meltdown. You know, what is wrong with your child? They might be hitting other children. They might be having trouble using the restroom. They're wetting themselves. They wet the bed at night. They're going to have nightmares. They're going to blame themselves for, well, this is what I did, and that's why my parents got in a fight at home. And then we talk about, you know, what happens to the kids from 12 to 18. You know, we're basically creating a new generation of domestic violence. We see truancy, teen pregnancy, date rape, violence, substance abuse. So we do see how DV affects every phase of our children. So they are actually the biggest victims in domestic violence.
Yeah, the comment that was made, I think, Devin, you said it prior, family violence is a problem, but it's not private.
Yes.
And those kind of things speak to that, because the things happening in that home or happening wherever it's happening at, it's impacting. We talk about generational. These things are going on, and it's impacting everything in that community. I mean, specifically for that family, but then it goes beyond that.
Absolutely. And I think that domestic violence, intimate partner violence, family violence, whichever that someone might be dealing with, if I could say anything to any of those that are suffering from that, you didn't do anything to deserve that. It happened to you. And you don't have to leave that situation right away. You don't have to get a restraining order. You don't have to do anything. You can always just reach out and talk to someone. I mean, we've sent so many people to Sarah. She's phenomenal. We have advocates on site 24/7 that are on call to be able to respond to anyone. I just wish that they would understand that they're not alone in these situations. We believe them. At the end of the day, that's what it is. We believe them.
I actually said that to a client. We were at the DV court on Tuesday, and she started crying. So I told her, you're not alone. I said, there are people in this community that can help you. I said, so call. I said, you know, we have all kinds of services that we can provide. So she just felt like she had nobody to turn to. But I told her, you know, there are people in this community that can help you. And I said, there are great services like Family Crisis Center. I said, you know, you just have to reach out. I said, don't hesitate to call us. And I said, you know, even if you want to just talk to somebody about your situation and then come back later, I said, that would be great. I said, but just let us, you know, just to let you know that we are here to help you.
What advice would you have for somebody, Saberta, in regards to kind of what you just, you know, kind of shared with us, for friends or family members who want to help a survivor?
I think just be supportive, be open to helping them, and then we also don't want you talking about the perpetrator, about, well, he's like this and all that. You want to just leave that out. So merely what you want to do is recognize what they're telling you, and they want to be able to talk to somebody about their situation because they feel like they have nobody to talk to. And when they do decide to talk to, they're actually going to talk to a family, a friend, or a neighbor and say, you know, I think I need help. I'm aware of one situation where this lady would tell her neighbor, if you need to call the police, if I flip my porch light off and on, I need help. So that was one way of letting her neighbor know that, you know, you need to call the police because I am in big trouble. So a lot of it's just mainly just being aware, being vigilant about what this person might be going through. If you notice they're missing work a lot, you know, you might want to say, you know, I noticed that you're not yourself, you know, is there anything I can do to help you? Did you know that there are resources in this community that, you know, can help you? You know, how can I help you? I mainly just being supportive for the client. And that's what they want, is they want someone to be able to listen to them and understand them and believe their story. I think that's, the
And
problem.
open up that conversation. Just having the willingness, by the way,
Correct.
to open up the conversation is a huge step for people, because there's a lot of fear involved. I think if you think somebody's going through something like that, and maybe the other person involved in that relationship, and maybe you're not wanting to involve yourself in that because of it puts you in a precarious situation, but just taking that first step and saying, hey, is everything okay?
Exactly. And I think that for family and friends especially, we have to remember that we're giving advice to people who are dealing with their loved ones. And so I know if any of my family thought I was in a bad situation, they would be bearing arms and being like, okay, what can I do? I've got your back. You have to take that step back and handle it very gently and ask them, do you need me to help you, or do you need a listening ear? Sometimes they just want someone to talk to. They're not ready to take that next step. And that's when you take a step back, you listen to them, and keep notes. That is one of the best things you can do for that family member or that friend, is document this date and time in a little notebook. This is what they explained to me, because if they do decide to move forward and maybe get a restraining order or anything, you can help them in that way at a later time. It's not always an immediate action.
Yeah, and just a little bit off of that, I have had lots of phone calls from family members of victims who call, and they just want to know, what resources do we have, right? And I think it's unfortunate they firstly go to the police department just because that's what they know, right? They don't know to look for a family crisis center, or what that even means, or a domestic violence shelter. And those family members calling on behalf of this person who's been victimized is huge. And I always love to support them too, because they're taking a big step in trying to find resources for this family member who's going through these traumatic events.
You made the comment, Devin, just in regards to reflecting on the individual who may be in that situation. I know in many cases, and you guys could clarify this, maybe most cases, because it's a loved one that's in their household that's doing this to them, that psychological component also in a way compels them, I love this person. The person who's victimizing me, I love this person. They may be, the father of my children, and I love them. And so there may be a defense mechanism also built into there. So stepping lightly, if you're going into that direction, I think is very important, because even just that component. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, no one marries someone that beat them on their first date. Most of the time I would say, I hope not, but we have to remember that they have built relationships and memories, that they're a loved one just as much. And so it's breaking that tie, especially if they have children together, and maybe their children haven't been, possibly affected by this violence. And so then they feel, okay, well, am I damaging my children? And again, that's where, if they're unsure of anything, or they don't know how to separate that, or maybe there's couples counseling, whatever it is, reach out to those resources. Reach out to, Sarah, reach out to New Beginnings, reach out to Family Crisis. We can always point anyone in the right direction, because no one is ever to be treated the same. Every relationship and domestic violence situation is unique, and that's why I think is so incredible about the resources we have in our community, is we handle them as unique.
It's such a heavy topic.
It really
Very
is.
heavy.
The things that I'm thinking about right now, just sitting here with you ladies, is just it's heavy. It's heavy, man. I just appreciate everybody in your fields that is willing to step out and take somebody by the hand and say, you don't have to do this. We can help you through this. You're not alone. I think that's probably the biggest message I would take out of this, is you're not alone. There's a community of people here that are willing to help you, and wherever you're at in your situation, we're there.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for having us here, because I hope that a lot of people see you talking about this with us as a precedence, that this is a topic to talk about. You don't have to be in this field. You don't have to be a service worker or anything to have these conversations, to be knowledgeable. You never know when you're going to be in that situation or come across someone in need.
It's sad that we have to have the services to begin with, right?
Yes,
I'd love to live in a world where people genuinely treated each other with civility and kindness and respect, and the golden rule applied all the time. But that's not our situation. So it's good to know that there is a robust service group groups that are available.
I think by doing events like this, it's just going to let our community know that there are resources. And I think just by doing the different community awareness presentations that I'm doing, more people are coming and asking for help and realize that, there are resources that I can call. There are things that I can do for my family. So I think that just, having the awareness is really big.
On that note, this obviously airs October 7th. There may have been some events that have taken place prior to this airing, but is there things coming up that people, if they just wanted to be somewhere where there could be information available, they could be there as well? Is there any events that we have going on here in October?
Yes.
Right.
I know. I love talking about this event. Our New Beginnings annual gala is going to be on October 11th, and it is going to be at the Farmington Civic Center at 6 p.m. And you do have to purchase your tickets in advance, but we have dinner and beverages by Clancy's. It is a vintage circus theme, so we have a man on stilts, a juggler, 3 aerialists that are going to be performing a whole live show. It's going to be absolutely magical. It is a 21 and older event only. I don't want anyone being confused by the vintage circus theme, because we will be talking about things. We are going to be sharing information about our agency, and 100% of the proceeds that we raise from this event go towards the men, women, and children that are in our programs.
Okay.
And then we're also going to have numerous October DV events at the Family Crisis Center, so we will have everything posted on our website. And then, like I said, this afternoon we're going to do a podcast with our perpetrators, and they're going to tell us about their stories, and we're going to be able to put that on our YouTube and Facebook page. So we're excited because that's the first time we were able to do this, and we're excited to have them come forward and share their stories, and hopefully, by sharing their story, it's going to help somebody saying, hey, I've been in your situation and I see you are turning out to be a better person. Maybe I'll go ahead and seek Family Crisis Center for services.
Well, it's just, learning about, and I think I knew previously that there was a program for perpetrators, and I think that's important. I mean, there may be somebody in that situation right now, like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm struggling with these things, and it continues to throw me back into this cycle where I'm hurting somebody. To know that there's something out there, and I would imagine many are court-ordered, but it's open to whomever would like to take it.
Correct. Anybody that wants to come in for services can definitely say, my family feels like I need help. Then they can definitely come in and get help for us.
Yeah. Is there anything else going on that you know about in this month?
Well, advocates from the Farmington Police Department will be at National Night Out on October 1st. Well, we'll have information about our program there. If anyone's wanting to stop by. Yes, sir. Okay. From 4 to 7, I believe.
Unfortunately, this airs after that.
That's true.
But that's okay.
So
people need to know that we do a police night out I think it's every October now that we've been doing that.
Yes, sir.
Which is a great event. It brings lots of vendors and agencies to share information on the services they have.
Yes, sir.
That's great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have any others that I know of at this point.
No, that's all right. Wonderful. Well, again, anything else we want to kind of leave with here?
Just want to encourage people to wear purple every Thursday in October. You're mainly you can wear a purple shirt, purple ribbon. Mainly what you're going to do is just show that you're honoring the victims of domestic violence, that you're committed to helping them, letting them know what resources are in the community, and then just letting them know there is hope for them to get out of their situation. So we always encourage purple in the month of October.
Okay. Devin, any final words?
Just again, if there's anyone that is dealing with domestic violence, whether it's you, a family, friend, an employee, a parent, you just reach out. We're always here to listen, and we will help in any way that we can.
Yeah.
Sarah?
And if anyone needs more information or wants to find information for a family member, my contact information is on the Farmington Police Department website, and they can give us a call. They don't have, just because they're calling me doesn't mean they're reporting an incident.
Okay.
They can if they'd like to, but we can definitely have a conversation and talk about what resources are there for them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I was just going to say they can go to our website, familycrisiscenter.org, and they can go ahead and read about the services that we provide, and then also phone numbers. Our crisis hotlines are on the website as well.
And same with New Beginnings.
Yes.
We'll have those on the screen as I speak, I hope.
Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. Well, again, I just appreciate you guys taking the time and coming here to share what your agencies are doing and the kind of the broader conversation wrapped around domestic violence. It's a very important conversation. It's something we shouldn't shy away from. It's something we need to talk about, and hopefully we can get those people who need help, we can give them the help that they need. So thank you again for being here today, and thank you for joining us again. I just ask you to reach out, seek information. Each of these agencies is here to serve and utilize their resources, and we'll continue to find funding. I know we were going to talk a little bit about that, but if you're looking for some way that you can give, I know they do accept private donations. There are fundraiser opportunities, and it certainly goes to a good place. So thank you again. We hope you've learned something here today. Share this with your friends and your family, and we'll see you here next time on the Mayor's Table.